In the boreal forest of Ontario, Canada, a lynx family lives peacefully among the tall pine trees. The mother lynx has thick brown fur with black markings and sharp but loving eyes. Next to her lies her baby lynx, just a few months old, active and playful. Every morning, the mother leads her cub through the forest, teaching him how to sneak, hide, and move quietly. The baby lynx is curious about everything, from dry twigs to the faraway sounds of squirrels. He always runs around, following his mother closely, eyes wide with wonder. One June morning, they reached a dense part of the forest full of squirrels and rabbits. The baby lynx crept carefully over fallen leaves, holding his breath, then rushed forward. When he saw a squirrel jumping between branches, he leapt onto a fallen tree to chase it. His mother watched from below, proud but worried about his boldness. He climbed higher and higher, chasing the squirrel up a rotten tree. The branch under his feet made a cracking sound, but he didn't stop. Just a few more steps, and he would have caught the squirrel's tail. But suddenly, the branch broke, and the lynx cub fell almost 3 meters to the ground. There was a loud crash, and nearby birds flew into the sky. The mother lynx jumped up, ran, and growled, not understanding what had happened. The baby lynx lay still under the tree, his belly covered in wounds from sharp branches. Blood soaked his soft fur. His eyes looked dazed, and he was breathing heavily and groaning. His mother licked his wounds, trying to comfort him, but didn't know how to help. She paced around and growled in despair, as if calling out for help. The baby lynx looked at his mother with pleading eyes, as if to say, "Don't leave me." Suddenly, the mother lynx stood up, turned her head, and ran toward the edge of the forest. The cub lay there, curled up and breathing painfully. The mother ran like the wind, pushing through bushes and jumping over fallen logs. She followed a path to the asphalt road where people sometimes passed by. Her fur was dusty and torn by branches, but she didn't stop. The sun was high in the sky, shining through the leaves on her slim body. She stood in the middle of the road, listening for the sound of an engine. A pickup truck appeared, its wheels rolling smoothly over the forest road. When the truck got close, she jumped into the road and let out a loud cry. The driver slammed on the brakes, and the truck stopped suddenly. The man's eyes widened in shock. "What is this?" he whispered as he stepped out and looked at the animal in front of him. It was a female lynx, crying out, not acting aggressive. The man, Walter, was a retired vet who used to help wild animals. When he looked into her eyes, he immediately knew something was wrong and that she needed help. Walter slowly stepped forward and reached out his hand to calm the lynx. She rubbed her head against his leg, turned, and ran into the forest, stopping to signal that he should follow. Walter opened his trunk, grabbed his first aid kit and supplies, and followed her footprints. Despite his age, he moved quickly, eyes focused on the path she took. The forest grew thicker, the wind whistled through the trees, and dry leaves rustled under his feet. At last, he reached the tree where the baby lynx lay in a pool of blood, gasping for air. The mother lynx sat beside him, watching Walter's every move with worried eyes. Walter knelt down, gently touched the cub, and opened his first aid kit. He used salt water to clean the dust and dried blood from the wounds. He waved away buzzing flies with a fresh branch. Then he carefully stitched the wounds with a needle and thread. The lynx cub whimpered and moved with each stitch, but didn't fight back. The mother stayed nearby, tense and ready to act if needed. After stitching, Walter wrapped a bandage around the cub's belly to stop the bleeding. He gave him antibiotics and painkillers. A few minutes later, the lynx lifted his head and blinked. His breathing steadied. His mother crawled closer, rubbed her face against his cheek, and licked his fur to comfort him. Walter sighed in relief. wiped his sweat, and stepped back to let them rest. He took a small bag of meat from his pocket, tore off a few pieces, and placed them in front of them. The cubs sniffed and began eating slowly, bit by bit. The mother lowered her head too, but kept watching Walter closely. Walter leaned back and cleaned up the blood and medical supplies. "Take good care," he said softly. "I'll come back if needed." Then he stood up, turned around, and walked out of the forest, leaving the Lynx family in peace. The mother watched him silently until he disappeared. Walter arrived home as the sun hung high in the sky, and the air was fresh. He took off his coat and sat on the steps, happy that he had saved the little one's life. He went inside, opened a cupboard, and took out more meat, hoping they would return in a few days. That night, he couldn't sleep. The lynx's cry still echoed in his mind. The next morning, he made coffee and stood by the window, looking out over the forest. When he saw nothing, he smiled and whispered, "Maybe they're resting." He walked to his yard and placed meat on the old log, a silent invitation. Still, he didn't know if they would come back. He sat in a wooden chair with coffee in hand, listening to the wind blowing through the trees. Then, a miracle happened the next morning. As the morning sun shone through the pines, a soft sound came from the porch steps. Walter stepped outside and was amazed to see the mother and baby lynx quietly watching him. The cub's belly was still wrapped in white bandages, but his eyes were bright and full of life. The mother raised her head, didn't growl, but watched his reaction closely. Walter smiled and whispered, "You're back? I knew it." He went inside, brought out a plate of fresh meat, and gently placed it at the door. The cub ran up, licked Walter's hand, and started eating. His mother stood nearby, not eating right away, just watching like always. Walter sat on the grass and stroked the cub's back, his heart filled with indescribable emotions. After eating, the mother and cub lay in the sun on the porch like they belonged there. Walter didn't try to tame them, but he didn't push them away either. It was a friendship built on trust. He took a photo and saved that moment as an unforgettable memory. The lynx rubbed his head against Walter's leg again in a final thank you. The mother walked back into the forest, leading her cub away, but both looked back as if promising to return. Walter watched them disappear into the woods, his heart as light as falling leaves. From that day on, the lynx mother and her cub visited him every week early in the morning. Walter always had meat ready and the door open for his wild friends. The cub grew up strong and healthy, and his wound left only a small scar. News of the amazing story spread through the region and inspired many people. In the quiet boreal forest, an unexpected friendship had bloomed between a man and wild animals. Thank you, dear friend, for taking the time to watch the whole video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support our channel. See you next time.